Are Calvinism and Mormonism kind of the same thing? Let's take a look at it. What's up, Truths? This is Ben, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe real quick. It really helps out. Give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down at the end of the video or right now. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Well, it actually does matter because it helps out the algorithm. All right, let's take a look at a channel here in a short clip from a video from Faith on Fire. Now, Faith on Fire is a gentleman who I've briefly covered before. Well, I thought about covering him a couple more times, and I may in the future, but it's hard to cover somebody like this because he's so convicted in his beliefs and his claims about Calvinism, but he has truly such a limited, unrealistic, just internet historian view of Calvinism. He doesn't really understand it like he thinks he does. He really does think he's delving into some mysteries here and uncovering things. And from his video, well, several of his videos, but especially the one he did on Justin Peters that I mentioned, and his weed thing and whatnot, he obviously has like an emotional disdain for Calvinism that I think clouds his view, and also his reliance on the King James Bible is very odd, and I'm going to do a video on that in the future. But his ideas that he uses the King James as his standard and then judges all other Bible versions off of that. That was one of his videos about the egalitarian and complementarian issue that he did earlier on in his channel's career, or early on in his channel's lifetime. And he was talking about how all these changes had been made to the KJV to make the men in the future sound more dominant and less women less dominant and more subservient. It was very odd because he starts with the idea that the King James Version of the Bible is the standard that you start from, and then you just go from there, which shows a true lack of understanding when it comes to textual criticism and how translations are done. We can do a video of that on the future, but we're going to take just a look at a short clip here from a video he did entitled Christian Apostasy and Cults, Calvinism, Mormons, and Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, the fact that he includes Calvinism in the cults truly shows that he just has an absolute disdain for Calvinism, and he doesn't understand what cults are, what Christian cults are. You need to understand that a Christian cult is a technical term. And actually, if you've read Walter Martin's The Kingdom of the Cults, great book, we're going to take some sections from this and we're going to read from it because it does have an actual technical term in it that we're going to read. And then I'm going to kind of show you a couple of distinctives of Christian cults, cults in general, the difference between a religious Christian cult and a sociological cult, like a Jim Jones cult. There is a difference between them as well. And then the difference between just different denominations or theological views, because that's really what it breaks down to. But people like this and like Miss Elena L., I've been seeing a lot of her views lately. They have this idea, this conspiracy of Calvinism. Both of them suffer from ACDS. You could watch my video on that. Obviously a satirical work, but I'm starting to think when I did that work that it's actually not as satirical and sarcastic as I thought it was initially. Some of these people actually, I think, suffer from that. Anyways, we're gonna get into it. So we're just gonna watch a little bit of his video here and his claims on Calvinism and how Calvinism is just the same as Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, and it's a Christian cult that has branched out. And we're gonna talk about Calvin and Augustine and Manichaeism and all these different things, and then we're gonna get into the actual real definition of a cult in the technical terms and how you can actually discover what is a Christian cult and what's just a theological or denominational view, maybe a secondary or peripheral issue. So let's do that. But let's go ahead and watch some of this video and see what he has to say. All right, here it is. And we're going to start at a minute and 15, somewhere in here. And we're just going to let him talk for a minute. And I'm going to let you get a view into what he thinks about Calvinism, because what he thinks about Calvinism and how he describes it is very interesting and bizarre. And this is maybe not a new thing, but it's been this ideology of this cult of Calvinism where it's this wild, outlandish thing that came out of nowhere, and it's just this Jim Jones kind of kingdoms, heaven, can't even speak right now, kingdom, the people with the purple blankets, I can't even think right now, Heaven's Gate, thank you. But yeah, so it's just weird. It's just weird to watch. Let's watch it, and then we're going to respond.
And so I'll say ahead of time, if you are a Calvinist watching this and you are offended by the content or the concept that if you think Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult, which most Calvinists I've found have no problem saying that. Understand if you said that to them. I don't think there's too many of them watching my channel. That's why I'm saying this about Calvinists now. I think they would be offended too.
And that's true. They would be offended, but then there would be technical reasons, historic reasons that we would go into to show and prove that they are a Christian cult, a severe split and schism from true Christianity, not just a theological difference where we might argue some of the issues between soteriology and things of that nature, or pneumatology. No, this is a massive split. And so we would get into the reasons why, and they would be, well, we'll get into those later.
Because they really believe they're right. They think they have found the truth, and they have the enlightened view of the world according to God.
And they also believe that they have people that are prophets, continuationists in terms of prophecy. So they are true prophets that God has sent to update Christianity and to correct the errors.
Now, how did they get where they are? How did they get so deceived? Well, the same method and ways Calvinists are deceived and believe they're correct and they're right. Now, what you're going to find in all three groups is they all claim to know Jesus Christ and they all claim to read the Bible.
No, that's not actually correct. Kind of correct. They claim to read the Bible, sort of. The Mormons will claim to read the King James Version of the Bible, and they will say that it's only correct when it lines up with the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Christ, Doctrines and Covenants, the marriage ceremonies that they go through. Same thing with Jehovah's Witnesses. They have the New World Translation that has been supposedly translated from the original Greek, and once the names of the authors of the New World Translation leaked out, it turned out that none of them knew the original languages and could translate from Greek. So it was just a paraphrase based on wishful thinking and what they wanted it to say. They also have the Watchtower Society, which is the authority within their group, within their Christian cult split. So that's one of the differences that we need to notice, is that in a Christian cult, in the real technical term of it, they have a leader or a prophet that claims he has updated or new demands that do away with things that are in the New Testament or Scripture. So if you're a Mormon and you read the Book of Mormon and you read the King James Version of the Bible, if you find a discrepancy between the two, you go with the Book of Mormon because you have an outside secondary source that has now trumped Scripture, because somehow you believe that Scripture has been disregarded or is lesser or broken or has been corrupted, right? I mean, I don't know how, depends on who you talk to. They might go into that whole Constantine and the corruption of the New Testament and textual criticism and kind of cult martyrdom. And some of them are kind of gone that liberal route. And that's one way that you can, so if you've dialogue with a lot of liberals, a lot of times you can dialogue with people in the cults, but they also, like I said, they also have prophets that they will quote. So Joseph Smith, in his the King's Fall Discourse, I think it's called King's Fall Discourse, one of his last speeches, he gives all these very bizarre sayings. And, one of the most famous quotes from Joseph Smith is, as man is, God once was, and as God is, man can become, because they believe that Jesus Christ was once a man just like us, and went through the four ceremonies that the Mormons have to go through, and he became a perfect Mormon. And then he, once he died, he inherited his own universe in which he got to arrange matter and intelligences. They don't believe you get to create it from scratch, but you get to arrange it, and him and his wives repopulate that new universe with spirit babies that end up going into physical babies. And then those people can go through all the four rituals and covenants that the Mormon Church prescribes, and they can become gods, and so on and so on and so on. And so you can get into this problem of infinite regress, and if you go back, infinite gods, like how far does it go back? And it's kind of a weird thing to talk about. And the same thing with the Jehovah's Witness or the Christian Science or the World Mission Society Church of God, WMSCOG, that I've quoted before. And then he has John Calvin on here with the Institutes of the Christian Religion. I mean, it should just be silly to look at this truly, and to claim that people who are Reformed or Calvinistic put the Institutes of the Christian Religion on the same level or above the New Testament Scriptures. Anybody that ever listens to Calvinists or has read John Calvin knows that that is ridiculous, and none of us are ever claiming that. And it's just weird because he has put this in here, and he obviously doesn't understand Calvinism or just hates it, and so he's trying to slur it and ad hominem attack it and go after it in any way, shape, or form and try to include it in a category that it doesn't actually deserve to be included in. Oh, and so the Book of Mormon, look at the bottom. You see the bottom? He has the Book of Mormon, corrects the KJV, the New World Translation, which we've already talked about that, and the MacArthur LSB Bible. Yes, because every good Calvinist knows that John Calvin was a prophet. He wrote the Institutes of the Christian Religion to be on the same level or above the New Testament. Oh, and the MacArthur LSB Study Bible is now somehow been authorized by all Calvinists as the new authorized standard by which to use. Okay, I don't know where he gets that from. I mean, I'm sure MacArthur's Bible is a good commentary. I don't have one. I actually have the ESV because I looking at the Greek, in the original wording, and most Calvinists or Reformed people use the ESV or the NASB. They might have a MacArthur LSB study Bible as like a secondary resource, like a commentary, like they might have the Institutes of the Christian Religion as a secondary work or commentary to, help in their sanctification. But there is no correlation between this chart and reality. No Calvinist is teaching what this man is saying they're teaching. John Calvin sure wasn't saying that he was a prophet and his work should be put on par with Scripture. John MacArthur, I'm sure, isn't saying that. I'm sure he would just claim that his Bible is a commentary and a resource. James White, Voddie Baucham, Justin Peters, all these Calvinists that I know would never say anything like this, and they never have taught anything like this. So I don't know where this is coming from, except from the fact that he either just does not understand Calvinism, or he really just wants to, slam it and slur it and slander it and do whatever he can to make it look as bad as possible so then he can justify the way that he acts. But, I mean, that's really the only thing I can see, because obviously the video he did where he put all these words in Justin Peters' mouth, where he took a short clip from his Clouds Without Water series, which is like, 9-10 hours, this long. And he takes one small clip in a Q&A and says, see, Justin Peters hates women and says that it's all their fault. And he just went into this massive list of just erroneous claims. And even Justin Peters in the comments is like, what? I didn't say any of that. So this man obviously can't be trusted to correctly interpret either the scriptures or what people are saying if he doesn't agree with them. So let's take a look at the book real quick. Okay, if you don't have this book, this is a great book to have. Actually, this book, they usually come in a set. I would suggest getting them The Kingdom of the Occult, very good book. And The Kingdom of the Cults. This is the one that's edited by Ravi Zacharias back before all that happened with Ravi. Excuse me. So let's just take a look real quick. And there's this very general definition of what a cult means, right? It's a very brief general definition. But I think this will be helpful. By the term cult, I mean nothing derogatory to any group so classified. A cult, as I define it, is any religious group which differs significantly in one or more respects as to belief or practice from those religious groups which are regarded as a normative expression of religion and our total culture. I may add to this that cult might also be defined as a group of people gathered about a specific person or person's misinterpretation of the Bible. For example, Jehovah's Witnesses are, for the most part, followers of the interpretations of Charles T. Russell and J.F. Rutherford. Christian Science of today is a disciple of Mary Baker Eddy and her interpretations of Scripture. The Mormons, by their own admission, adheres to those interpretations found in the writings of Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. It would be possible to go on citing many others, such as the Unity School of Christianity, which follows the theology of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. From a theological viewpoint, the cults contain many major deviations from historical Christianity. Yet paradoxically, they continue to insist they are entitled to be classified as Christians. Right, so this is where you see the great deviations in what is being taught in Scripture and in church history, and what you see being taught by supposed continuationist prophets, their writings which trump Scripture, these massive differences. And it's interesting, another thing to note that maybe just a general observation is that there's usually a unified authoritative body, a singular authoritative body. So obviously within Mormonism in Salt Lake City, you have the 70 elders and the president, and with the Jehovah's Witnesses, in Brooklyn, New York, you have the Watchtower Society, right? The Watchtower magazine that goes out, people have probably seen that. Christian Science you have, right? So it's usually a centralized authoritative institution that guides these groups, and that's obviously not the same thing with Calvinism, unless you somehow think that Grace to You and John MacArthur are the ground zero for Calvinism. But on page 31, this is interesting. He's got a chart here. It says, a quick survey of how cults redefine Christian terminology illustrates this important observation. Within Mormonism, the term God, cult definition, many gods, Christian definition, one God. Jehovah's Witnesses, term Jesus Christ. Cult definition, not God, created by Jehovah. I believe they think that he's Michael the Archangel, who ceased to exist and then was recreated as Jesus Christ. And then when he died, he was recreated as Gabriel, as best as the God of Jehovah's Witnesses could reconstruct him. And that's the same thing when a Jehovah's Witness dies. They believe if they are brought back in heaven, they will be reconstructed as best as God can remember them. So you cease to exist, completely cease to exist, and then you're remade. So it's not really you. It's some weird stuff going on there. Christian Science, the term sin, illusion, error, not real, disobedience to God. Christian scientists don't believe in sickness. Right? They have a really weird ideology surrounding sickness. And they don't believe in sickness. And if you're sick and you see one of them and you ask them if they're sick, they'll just say no, because they believe if you positively affirm, then you are somehow like giving credence and the authority to sickness to be in your body. So you just deny it, even though you are truly sick. The New Age, salvation, becoming one with the universe God. So as you can tell, this is a good resource for anybody that wants to learn about cults, real cults. But like I said, the marks of a true cult are a prophet, or somebody who comes along to claim that they have new, updated spiritual insights and commands from God that redo or snuff out the old ones found in the New Testament. Church history obviously is able to see them, define them. You can see where the schism usually starts. A lot of them, interestingly enough, started in the 19th century in America. It's kind of interesting. That was a weird century for cults, Christian cults, and schisms that happen. But I mean, anybody that has ever studied a Christian cult, or even a sociological cult, like I said, like Heaven's Gate or Jim Jones, right? This was a charismatic personality who just gets people under them. And Heaven's Gate, I think it was Applewhite, I think was the guy's name, where they all died in California, right? Remember, if you were alive in the 90s, and you saw they had the purple sheets pulled over them, and they killed themselves. They all drank this poison elixir, and they wanted to die so that when the comet came by, they could get on the UFO ship that was behind it, trailing it, so they could go up and whatever it was that they believed. So the fact that this man continues to put Calvinism, which is just a theological difference, obviously there are some big differences, but to put them on the same plane and to make parallels between Christian cults when there aren't any is ridiculous. And it shows that he either A, just hates Calvinism and is doing whatever it is that he can to smear them in any way, shape, or form, or he just doesn't understand history, theology, doctrine, how to make proper philosophical distinctions. Category errors abound here. And I think you can see in his other books, I mean, his understanding of the KJV and how he uses that as his authoritative standard against other things, and how he, is making these claims that all these other, it's just so many errors. But he's so confident and so arrogant in his understanding that it's truly shocking. And I'm starting to see this more and more. This internet historian, internet theologians that don't have any proper training or understanding, that are just coming on and making all these videos. And then when these people just kind of, they just get like in this echo chamber, and then one person makes a video and another person makes a video, and then everybody goes and watches little Leighton Flower videos, and they just repeat what he says. And, Calvinism and Augustine and Manichaeism and all these weird claims. It's interesting, like, if these claims are true, they would be taught in scholarship, right, or into intellectual or university level, but they're not. And it's not like because scholars aren't aware of these things. I mean, it's out there. Everybody can go out and read what was said, what was done. I mean, it's there to read. And it is weird that over and over and over again, I keep saying, and Calvinists keep saying, but everybody just keeps ignoring because they don't want to actually deal with the scriptures, is that we base our arguments in scripture. I've never seen a Calvinist get up and defend his view on soteriology for salvation or pneumatology from the institutes of the Christian religion. Whereas I've seen more Mormons than I can count get up and argue from the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, Doctrines and Covenants. It just doesn't happen. So if people like Faith on Fire, I mean, he gets a lot of views, so I'm sure that's why he does it, and he gets a lot of comments and support, probably thumbs up. And so it makes him think that he's being empowered by truth, but he's just simply not. He's simply in error. And if you're watching this gentleman and you think that he's actually representing Calvinism, Christianity, or history, or proper distinctions, then you're going to be led astray as well. And he's not the only one. I've seen the Miss Elena L. was her channel. And she's been starting to do videos on Calvinism again because she's been getting a lot of views. And I don't hate her or her channel. She's actually got some cool stuff in there. She's a homeschool mom. Seems like a nice lady. Seems like, she was my next door neighbor, went to my church. We could be friends. But her view is the same thing on Calvinism. Lots of errors, lots of issues, lots of misunderstanding from somebody who claims to be a previous Calvinism. So this gets a lot of internet popularity, but there's not really any substance or meat behind it. It's just simply error. And until people like this, like Faith on Fire, are able to properly, what's the word I'm looking for? Properly convey what Calvinists actually believe, and then attempt to defeat those arguments, you're just going to be ignored or mocked, or people aren't just going to take you seriously, except people who already believe what you think. I mean, you don't have to believe what I believe in order to properly represent me. I remember listening to a Jordan Peterson interview, and obviously I've made videos about Jordan Peterson. He's not my favorite person ever, but he's very intelligent, extremely intelligent gentleman. And he does have a lot good to say. I don't appreciate his take on Christianity, but he said that one of the things that he does with people is that disagree or that are fighting or debating is he will have them sit down and they will talk to each other, and he will say, okay, you have to make sure that you represent the other person's position correctly before you can debate or fight against it. So he'll have the person sitting across from me. So if I was sitting across from Faith on Fire, he would say, okay, Faith on Fire, what does Ben Hansel believe? And then he would have him tell me what he thinks I'm actually saying. And if he was wrong, which in this case he is, I would actually explain it to him. And then Jordan Peterson would have him repeat that back to me until he actually correctly represents what I'm saying. Now, that's not saying that he has to agree with me, but he should at least be able to accurately represent what I'm saying before he can then debate it or try to debunk it. And it would be the same way with me talking to him. So if you're going to claim to be a Christian, and you're going to claim to be fighting against all these evils and cults and Calvinism and Manichaeism, you should be able to properly represent what Calvinists believe and then debate the issues that they're actually putting forth. Because when you keep attacking straw men and then claiming victory, nobody takes you serious. I mean, this graphic is truly almost laughable if it wasn't so sad, because so many people actually believe in things like this. It's truly ridiculous. You won't find these things in Calvinism or Reformed Theology. You'll find it on that side, but you won't find it being taught by us. So maybe try to work on representing people correctly and then actually debate what they actually think. All right, I hope this helps, guys. Got a couple more videos coming. I think I'm going to look at Miss Elena L. A lot of straw men come from her as well. I think a lot of misunderstandings coming from her. She's the same thing. I see a lot of errors, a lot of misrepresentation, and then a lot of straw men, and then a lot of attacks. And I'm not sure exactly why. I'm not saying that she's doing it on purpose. She's trying to be a horrible person. Same thing with this gentleman, but she just has a misunderstanding, and I'm not sure why. And so she's attacking things that Calvinists don't actually believe or say. And so we're going to probably look at that in another video. But I appreciate you guys coming by. I hope this helps. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below of this video. What do you think about Faith on Fire? Again, you don't have to agree with me, but if you're a Christian, you should be able to accurately represent me and then debate what I'm actually saying. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.